Chef Bob Waggoner spent many years in the fine dining business here in Charleston. Now he has his own private dining business. I speak exclusively with Chef Bob for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Chef Bob Waggoner, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
It's been a long time. It's been a long time. And I got to tell you right off the bat, man,
Yes, sir.
I love you. I can't. You work so hard. Either that, or you just make it look like you're working really hard. Every time I see you, you're running like a first year student at the Citadel.
Yes, sir.
You're not running in the gutter, but you're running on the sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
And
That's
you've
right.
always got some. You must do like 27 things a day. And I honestly, I'm honored to be on your show, and honestly, congratulations on what you do for this city and getting the word out and just working so damn hard. I feel for you because you always look like you're just going to town.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate that coming from you. It's really an honor. We obviously, you need no introduction because obviously you have your own business now, and it's In the Kitchen with Chef Bob Waggoner. But before I begin that, I got to talk to you about some developing news, obviously, and this is coming from WCBD. As you know, and a lot of us found out late yesterday afternoon, the founder of Hall's Chop House, Bill Hall, passed away unexpectedly Wednesday morning, according to a spokesperson from Hall's Management Group. And Jim Wallstrom with Hall Management Group says, quote, his vision for the future always stretched us and made us better. The current mayor of Charleston said this, quote, the sense of true hospitality that's become synonymous with the Hall's name here in Charleston was never a business strategy or a show for the general public. It was just a fundamental part of who Bill Hall was. Chef, let me ask you this. How do you describe Bill Hall?
Bill Hall was alongside of you, the hardest working man in this city. He went through, I know he had some cancer issues for a while. He went through that, got through that, indestructible. Just the hardest working man. And everybody I know that worked for him, frankly, good buddy of mine, Russ, I spoke with him, yesterday about just the business and what's going on with them. And if you got up at 7 a.m, you thought you were there early on time for work. Bill had already been there half an hour and making sure everything was the way it should be. And at midnight, he's talking to guests in the dining room and has done more for this city. And it's devastating. And my condolences go out to him and his family that just loved him and saw how hard this guy worked. The hardest working person in this city, and it showed in his restaurants and his service, and and people. Everyone talks about it, and I've worked fine dining for good golly, I can say 40 years now. That's a long time.
Yes,
and I can honestly say the only restaurant in the city that had the service and the follow up service, and you got a little card saying thank you to come, completely blew people away. And not a difficult thing. He didn't invent it. He just made it happen. He just pushed that onto his people and just made that atmosphere, and will go away, unfortunately, as the greatest restaurateur of Charleston, in my opinion. There's been restaurateurs, but no one across the board with 8-10 restaurants from a casual place on Folly Beach that I literally went. We were with, I want to say we were with my little sister, my dad, who was 88 at the time. And we were sitting out on the porch, and he came out and sat with us for 20 minutes because he was at another table with his wife and his kids, and just wanted to say hi and talking to my dad about the Navy, and just the kindest, nicest, but more than anything, hardest working man I've met in the industry. And I've spent a lot of time, 11 years in France, working in 3-star Michelin restaurants.
Right.
Guess what? If every restaurant in the city had his work ethic, we'd be, there'd be a lot of competition. It'd be tough to get in, but his restaurant's its busiest restaurant, Hall's Steakhouse, busiest restaurant in the city, by above and beyond, above and beyond, by like $2 million a year. And people go in going, oh my gosh. But you know what? You get to talk with both the sons, the wife's there, it's still at a huge level, a family affair. And and even the waiters and the cooks and people that work for him. And as I said, I talked with Russ at Slightly North of Broad that they picked up the Maverick Company a couple years ago, and he said, Bob, we haven't changed anything. We haven't, during this whole COVID thing, we haven't dropped any insurance on. We're still paying the same insurance. We're still paying everything is though salaries and everything paid people through the closings even, which was, who did that? Guarantee you, nobody. You look at all the big places, everybody's closed, shut down, not calls. It's so saddened to hear that he passed away, but his legacy will live on through his through his kids and lovely wife and family that are obviously alongside of him running those restaurants, because you can't do that alone. But to pass along that work ethic and love of the business, because it's not work ethic's one thing, but the love of the business and the pleasure you give to your waiters to make sure that the people sitting at table 6 go home smiling. Don't forget to send him a card tomorrow. Don't forget to send him a little something, or Bobby's sending you a cocktail because you've been in there 3 times on business this week with people, and he's sending you a little something at the bar, and it's just the way restaurants should be run, and most of them aren't. So here's him truly saddened by the passing of Bill Hall. But you know what? His restaurants will live on, and his legacy here in Charleston will live on through the fine dining that he has passed along to his family.
You talk about fine dining. You talk about how restaurants should be. What is the state of fine dining, particularly here in Charleston these days?
Fine dining's closed. It's tough. There's no if there's one thing that the city people are saying, oh my gosh, there's so many tourists and people parking in my front yard, and there's the tour buses and blah blah blah. Guess what? That's what keeps us alive. And there's no one here. It's devastating. It's tough because right now there's probably, I don't know, at least 25 restaurants that need to do 150 people a night at $100 a person. Well, guess what? That clientele's not here right now. COVID's completely shut that down. So I talked with Mark Collins the other day, and he's saying we've ran out of our PPP money because that lasts a couple months, and
right.
Then you do. And right now we're doing 20, 30 through the week. He goes, this weekend we've got like 100, which is huge. My gosh. So, but if you're not getting rent help, then you're 50%. We're running at 50% doesn't cut. If we're lucky in a fine dining restaurant, if you net 10% at the end of the year, you've done a great job. So if you're running at 50% and you're only allowed to do half your income or separate the tables, which we're understanding and we're doing, and doing all that, but it's a ridiculous struggle. It's going to be tough. And plus, we close during our Christmas. March, April, May. That's Christmas in Charleston. That's right. Our high-end clientele of people that are 55 and above with some spending money that are willing to spend $500 on a room at Charleston Place Hotel, $200 dinner at Fig, and and rent a boat for a couple $100 on the weekend, and go to some plantations and wine tastings and things like that. But there's people lurking around the city, but they're not filling the fine dining restaurants because it's tough. But that's August also in general. Yes. Hot as hell.
Yeah, exactly right. What should the city do now to help these struggling restaurants in your mind?
You know what? To me, from the beginning, what we should have, my big cost, any restaurant's big cost, is rent. Our employees are, when you shut us down, they which is understandable, should be shut down. Honestly, I think we should be shut down now. COVID's worse now than it was in March. Whereas right now, you close down for another couple months, but where's our major cost is in rent. You take any restaurant in the city and you go to the owner of that building, which, knock on wood, thank God for me that my owner's been kind enough. He let me slide for 2 months during March and April, and now I'm paying half, which I'm just barely getting by to be able to pay half. But he's kind enough to let me slide, going, Bob, we want you in there. We understand it's tough, and everybody's in the same boat. But if you were to help anybody rather than just help me with a loan for my employees, well, restaurants employees are all on, they're all making unemployment, sitting at home drinking beers, hanging out at the beach, making $900 a week. Whereas if you went to the owner and said, look, we're going to go to the owner of your building and we're going to give him a break for 6 months. Whereas the owner doesn't have to pay on his loan for 6 months, but pass that along to your restaurateurs where they don't have to pay you rent for 6 months. And we can work at 50%. Without, you give me half my dining room, half my terrace, but I don't have to pay rent for 6 months. Maybe in 6 months it'll be done and we'll at least, turn it around a little bit. because that's the big cost. It's not employees. Employees are all sitting at home, on unemployment. At least they were until a week ago. We'll see how that works. And even the unemployment. Now we're saying, well, it's keeping the kids from going back to work. What work? There's nobody looking for jobs. And there's nobody hiring this week, at least none that I know of. The restaurants that I talk to, the guys are, some of the managers have moved on, gone to other restaurants, or moved back home and stuff like that. They're not filling those spots. They're trimming down and getting by and doing what they can to not let people go. So it's a tough, without sounding like a Debbie Downer, it's just it's a tough time. But rent is a huge part of the coup for a restaurant. So if they can find a way of helping the loans on the people that own the building, like my building, the guy who owns my building, if they was to say, hey, look, we're going to let you slide on your loan. We're going to go to your bank and say, don't let this guy slide. Government will pay your, or just put it at the end, like they are on some of the homes, just tack it on to the end of your, the end of your mortgage. And if we didn't have to pay that, I think a lot of restaurants would stay alive. Just because that mortgage is that rent's a huge chunk of change. Usually 25-30% of your monthly bill, a lot of it's on that. So it's a tough deal, but we're hanging in.
Hanging in there. And if you were an executive chef right now in one of those top restaurants, what would Bob Waggoner do now?
You know what? Right now they're closed. Charleston Grill's closed. Peninsula Grill's closed. Those guys are looking to open up in October,
right,
with a big question mark going, we'll see, The hotels aren't, I know some of I know Charleston Place opened back up, but they opened up back because they've got groups.
Right.
And even Mark Collins, I said, so how's it going? He says, we're hanging in there. But he says, what our candy, our candy money that keeps us alive and gives us money to work with during the tough months are banquets. There's no banquets. No one's booking a banquet right now. Right. Charleston Place, I mean, they, back in the day, we did, $2 million a month. Right. In banquets, stupid money, stupid money. Whereas when that goes away, we're done. Just the restaurants not keeping that, the restaurants aren't keeping the place alive. So that banquet business, even for me, I've got 5 or 6, probably now, if you think about it, probably 8 groups that come every year that just do like food and wine. During food and wine, people will book my place out and just make me, Bob, just cook for us, or the Chevalier de Tastevin, the big Burgundy wine dinners, which are 25 people that'll come in and, bring their own wines. And it's, that all helps you through the shitty months, or a little hurricane or something, which already, it beats you up and up. But this is devastating. It's unfortunate. Restaurants are going to close, and then throw in some riots and beating up the inside of restaurants, and people finding out that their insurance didn't cover it because the insurance didn't cover riots. It's like, just close. What are you going to do? We've been closed for 2 months. You open back up, your place is all beat up and wines were stolen. And we don't cover riots, which another wake up call for a lot of restaurants. I've heard that from a policeman. And I said, honestly, so I'm calling my insurance guy going, yeah, if they would have done the same, you wouldn't have been covered either. I'm going, well, there you go. Pretty messed up, isn't it? I can see by the look on your face. That's what the restaurant, imagine being closed for 2 months, right, and then opening up for 10 days at 50%. If you're lucky, you can put some people outside. Right. And then you come in the next day and all your windows are broken, the wines and liquor is gone, and they painted your dining room yellow and they lit a fire in your kitchen. Well, let's call insurance and we're going to be down another week. No, you're not down at all. You're just going to close because you're not covered for a riot. So, yeah, messed up. It's definitely tough times, but we're going to fight through it.
Yes, sir. And
Charleston, we're pulling together.
That's right. Exactly right. And when you heard about the riots that took place in May, where did your mind go first?
Completely blew me away. Just lost. It just, I didn't even feel like it was in Charleston. And I found out about it. I was coming in the next morning. I was listening to NPR on the way in, and I'm coming into my kitchen, and my kitchen, I've got 16 8x10 windows. Right. I'm going, wow, hope I can work today because I got a group. I don't have a lot. I got 2 tops because, I'm trying to do my little COVID separating the tables, whereas usually I'd have a big, big giant table with pretty linens. And now I separate everybody. Everybody's got their own oven and, so I'm doing my thing. But it was devastating. I had restaurants that, I was just going up the street. Everybody had brooms and, and pails, and we're helping people clean up. trucks that were coming down the street just with boards. People that couldn't even afford it or didn't even know it happened. They were just boarding up stuff for people, and just scary times. I mean, devastating. But well, it's stuff happens. You try and deal with it the best you can. The tough thing for me is that a couple restaurants and bars that were just barely sliding by, getting through being closed, and then getting it ransacked, and then just not being able to afford to bring it back together. So tough deal.
Yeah, and I know you talked a little bit about COVID. How has COVID affected your business?
I'm working at half speed also. I mean, the toughest thing for me is everybody reserves ahead of time. Usually I'm 3 months out, and reservations online, and during Christmas, I'm a big Christmas present. A lot of people get gift cards and things like that, so people buy a lot, and so I'll get a chunk of money coming in December that I wouldn't get in November or May or something like that. So I'll pay for my electricity, my gas. I'll buy that, and usually that's when all the good deals are on the wine. So I'll buy 40 cases of wine because the wine companies don't want to pay tax on that wine, and they're changing out wineries and things like that. So I'll buy 40 cases of wine. So I'll spend a lot of that money, and then come February and March, they say, "Oh, you're closing." Oh shit! If I can say that on your show, I've got March and April's full, completely full, booked. I don't have 2 spots left. Well, those people aren't coming. Now I got to reimburse them. Well, I spent that money in December because you plan as you go to keep you through winter, pay for stuff, and not have money left over at the end of the year that you don't if you can buy stuff. So half the people were from Germany, France, Des Moines, New York, Connecticut, just saying we're not coming this year, maybe next year. So just reimburse us. That hit hard. Right. And then half the people were kind enough to say, Bob, just move us to May, and then we moved to May, and it was still crappy in May, and let's move us to June, and June was still crappy. So now they're in September, trying to get them done in September. I'm almost done. Knock on wood. I wish I had. Let me see if I can show you. So this is you can tell how you can tell that I'm straight out of school with the kids. Here's this is how good I work. This is Bob's computer system. That's just people from March and April of me saying, okay, move them to another month, change them down to another month, because computers can go down. That's not going down.
Right. That's exactly right.
So I'm almost there, and knock on wood, but it's hurt. It's definitely hurt me. Instead of doing 12 and I do groups of 16 for a birthday party or a bachelorette party. Those are done. Nobody's screwing together with that many people. So now I have 4 small tables that we keep, separate 6 feet apart. And I separate people at their cooking stations and their cutting stations. Nobody uses the same utensils. My daughter and wife come in and clean the glasses and help me set up. But otherwise, I have no employees, so there's nobody touching anything. And I sanitize everything, clean everything, wipe everything down myself. So probably safer than a restaurant when it comes down to it. When you think of 12 waiters, 13 cooks, and a bunch of people coming in and out and passing back and forth. So I've lucked out that I've got a lot of people that are kind of need to get away from their kids. They're just done. And now school is starting back up. And they're going, I just need to get out. I don't care. Give me COVID. I got to get out. I just want to do something with my husband. I need a date night, and I don't want to be around a bunch of people in a restaurant. So so knock on wood, it's kind of worked out okay for me, and I have no employees. So it's just my wife and daughter and I that kind of a little family business that really helped, because if I had 5 employees, I'd have to let them all go. I'm doing half, but I can get by with half. Lucky for, as I said, knock on wood, that the owner of the building's kind enough to really understands to just say, Bob, do what you can, and that's huge for me. Otherwise, I would have closed, like some restaurants. If you're not getting help, if the owner of the building's not helping you, you're in for some trouble, because I don't know whether they're going to redo another PPP loan that was mostly at the beginning for employees, that you had to have a certain amount of employees. And even my bank, I talked to the guy, I said, you know what? I signed up and I got to it, and it didn't really follow through, and I don't really have employees, but now they've changed it around a little bit. And he said, you know what, Bob, who got the most of the funds are the big places, because we get a percentage of what we give to you. I'd rather give you $2.3 million than give Bob $10,000. which is unfortunate because the guy who needs 10 grand might have kept him through, kept him through the summer. But
Right.
the bank is making more, giving you $2.3 million for the big guy on their percentages of the PPP loans that they're giving out. So it's unfortunate, but I think the people are headstrong and holding on and doing. We're restaurateurs, but we definitely need help. Definitely need help, and we need tourists. And
Yes.
without tourists, it's a tough game. Anybody, and if there's a lot, I think there's a lot of people learning that right now. That without tourists, we're not dead in the water, but we're just barely floating. But we'll get through this.
Yes.
I think it's going to be long, and people are finally. You can see the people out wearing masks and paying attention, and it's just. I see my wife's family. My wife was born in France, and they shut down the country. There was literally. I mean, my mother-in-law is 85, and if you wanted to go get your medicine at the CVS a block away, you went online, printed up a little piece of paper, and you had 20 minutes because the cop's going to stop you at the end of the street and go, "What are you doing? What are you doing out?" Here's my sheet. I'm going to get. Okay, hurry up, and then get back home. 5 p.m. every day. You're at home, closed down. Nobody's out after 5 p.m. But guess what? They're doing better.
Thank God.
Yeah, they're doing better.
Yeah, and I have to ask you this question too. How are you identifying new opportunities for cost savings?
I don't. I'm not a. Oh, let me get rid of that one there. Sorry.
No worries.
I'm not. I don't try and save. I've always just bought what I've always been about. Just buy the best possible product there is, and I'm kind of like the people that are helping the restaurants and going to get takeout and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm doing the same thing with my fishers and my shrimpermen because those guys are dead in the water too. They're just not. I mean, if nobody's helping these guys, and they think, oh my gosh, the restaurants, it's so tough. What's the trickle down from a restaurant? From the wine guy that I'm buying wine from, that I haven't bought wine from in 4 months because I had my stock, to the distributor who's buying the wine from France, to the guy growing the grapes and in France. Those guys aren't selling anything. To the guy I buy toilet paper from, to the guy I buy shrimp or flour or milk, those guys are. That trickle down is beyond devastating. Rather than just say, oh my gosh, the restaurants difficult. But where does our money? I mean, 90%, 90 cents of every dollar spent in a restaurant goes back into the local community. Tomorrow, we're either paying for employees or paying for milk, butter, cheese, shrimp, and and stone ground grits. It's
Right.
all that goes back in. It's not like we're sending it to Tahiti or something, or in our private account in Switzerland. 90 cents of every dollar goes back into Charleston for every tourist dollar spent. So that's a huge thing. So I'm never been a penny pincher. I just try and make it. I mean, I'm really tight on what I spend, where if I'll say, like tonight I've got 7 people, well, I'm going to buy for 7 because there's no risk of 10 people showing up, and I'll just cut it off at a certain date, at a certain amount of time during the day, going, if 5 people call me, I'm done. I bought what I have for the day, and there's no risk of throwing stuff away or me eating it and getting fat, which is usually the case.
And you obviously talk about the shrimp, and obviously there was a big talk earlier this past weekend about the oil spill that happened in this area. When you look at that, where does your mind go to?
It's a worry. It's definitely a worry. It takes nothing. I grew up in California, and my first job was working in a tropical fish store, if you can imagine, just cleaning tanks and things like that. And it takes nothing to mess up an ecosystem. It takes nothing. I'm looking at tanks and I'm going, oh man, that one doesn't. These fish don't look too happy in tank number 4. Check the pH, and the pH is down. Let's add this, add a little bit of that, and add a bit of that, and that's in a 50-gallon aquarium. You throw a shit ton of oil into a system that doesn't know what oil is. It could be devastating. Could be devastating. I'm not sure how that even deal with that. Oh, sorry. Can you still see me?
A little bit. Well, you went black.
Did I go away?
Oh, there you are.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, I can hear you and see you. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I can't hear you as well, but hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, sir. I can hear you.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And let me ask you this too: from Providence to France to Tuscany, Italy, and Europe to Chile and Argentina and South America, I know that you are working to design tours that allow, obviously, you to lead people onto adventures to expand the culinary and travel horizons. Let me ask you this, Chef: how have you been able to expand your culinary horizons during this coronavirus outbreak?
Well, you know what the tough thing for me is that right now what I'll do in May and June is I'll take people to those. We had two province in Provence in France and
Right.
in Gourd and Nice, and then we had trips to Tuscany also, and then the other trips for next year we pushed everything again to next year, and that definitely helps out. Is being able to go get back to France. Whereas usually when I'm back in France with my wife, we're just goofing around with friends and family and other chefs and it'll kind of wake me up to things that they used to do. A lot of products that sometimes you can't find here,
Right.
but still just kind of wakes you up to flavors and herbs that you haven't used in a while, or a different wine that maybe you thought, man, I wonder if I could even get that there to make a reduction and kind of turn people onto it. And that's been fun with my trips to France. Is we'll wander through villages every day with 10 couples and just be walking by a pastry shop and people are going, oh my God, what's that thing? You've
Right.
never had that? Let's go get a chunk. And we'll
Yeah.
break it into 20 little pieces and everybody gets a piece. And
Yeah.
then we all come back to we'll find stuff in the markets and knowing how the markets work, you just go at the end of the market to go get the fish and just haggle. And it's not the worst fish. It was the most expensive fish that the guy has to take because I know his next market's not for 2 days.
Right.
And his sexiest fish probably ain't going to look all that sexy in 2 days. So you can kind of finagle and get deals with. And you got 10 Americans standing behind you going, come on, give us a deal. And the guy's going, what the hell? All right, do it. So we take back fish and meat and cheeses and local alcohols and hit up a local pastry shop. And we just come back and everybody chips in and we all make dinner together every night. So
Wow.
huge, crazy fun. So next year we've got, as I said, Argentina and south of Spain. And hopefully they'll want us by then. Right now, they don't want us.
Mm.
But really fun trips. It's all inclusive, and you just kind of show up. I give you a glass of wine when you get off the airplane and say, don't set that down for 10 days. And we you meet 10 people or 10 couples you didn't know, and heated pool and beautiful villas with olive trees around them. And if you don't want to go truffle hunting tomorrow, stay by the pool. We'll send you a pizza and just make it fun. So that's definitely expanding because you get to a point obviously in your career where you do a lot of the same stuff and you do what you know, and you also do what people enjoy. Also, you kind of figure out what people really get a kick out of rather than doing what really pleases you. It's like, people probably aren't going to want to eat squab, or people probably aren't going to want to eat, sweetbreads or something like that. Love them.
Yes.
Is that going to be a crowd pleaser for some people? Most people, you see the husbands are coming along going, I don't know how to cook shit, Bob. I hope you're going to help me out here. And so you do stuff that, local fish and local, and mostly also at the same time to help out the local guys who are definitely struggling at the same time. Just, you can see it. So as you guys are helping us by buying to-go stuff at the local restaurants and standing in line or eating outside and doing all that. And we love that. And thank you, Charleston, for that, because that's keeping some restaurants, afloat.
Yeah.
The restaurants are doing the same thing, trying to keep the local fishermen and shrimpers and and those guys and the local farmers, especially, they're hurting too. The markets took a hit, but we're Charleston.
Yes.
We're going to fight through this.
Yes,
We're going to make it happen.
Absolutely. And
You're helping.
Oh, thank you. I really do appreciate helping this community, yo. And you cook a lot. Which dish describes you as a chef and as a person?
I'm sorry, I could barely. I'm going to try and touch on this because for some reason, I can't hear you as well.
Okay. Let me try this. Which dish describes you as a chef?
What describes me
As a chef, which dish?
Oh, there we go. Now I'm back at you. What dish describes me?
Yes, sir.
It depends. There's the other day I got in some of our South Carolina quail, and we did this little tiny pasta. And I'm not a pasta chef by any means, but we did these little tiny. It's called acini de pepe. It looks like cracked pepper. It looks like couscous, really. Little tiny dish. And we had quail. I took our local quail and we went out and found some chanterelles. I'm not going to tell you where. Kind of over by Middleton, though.
Yeah.
and we found some chanterelles with my wife and my daughter, got eaten alive by the bugs. So there comes with a cost. You got to get eaten alive to be able to find these guys. And just a little pasta with that, and some snow peas, and some roasted garlic, and and some quail stock, and reduce that down, and a little bit of vermouth that goes into that sauce, and lots of shallots, and some smoked bacon also. So just a kind of a fun rustic thing, very French. I mean, I'm not going to say I spent 11 years in France working in great restaurants, and all that definitely rubbed off. But love playing with the local stuff, and mostly helping out the local guys.
That's so amazing. That is so amazing. Well, the honorable Chef Bob Waggoner, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
My pleasure, and I'm sure I'll see you speeding by anytime soon in the streets. Keep up the good work. I really appreciate what you do for the city, man.
Yeah, I definitely will. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You're welcome.